The defense steps up big time as the Buccaneers upset the Lions in Detroit. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up and welcome into this live post-game reaction episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listener view every day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can follow along on Twitter. I am James Yarcho at JYarcho_Bucs, credential member of the media covering your Tampa Bay Buccaneers as editor-in-chief of the 813.tv, here with you every Monday through Friday along with the everydayers. And for that, I want to share my appreciation for your continued support of the show. One of the ways you can support the show is become a Locked On Bucs insider. You're going to get news, rumors, updates, general thoughts, one-on-one conversations with me via text message. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs to become an insider today. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Biggest takeaways and game balls coming up in a little bit, but let's kick things off with the biggest moment of the game. And if the Bucs lost this game, the biggest moment would have been settling for a field goal on that opening drive when they got a 41-yard defensive pass interference penalty, set up first and goal from inside the 5. They had to settle for 3. Instead, I am looking at the end of the first half when Amon-Ra St. Brown was tackled by Zyon McCollum at the 9-yard line. Jared Goff tries to spike the ball, but the Lions get flagged for too many men on the field, resulting in a 10-second runoff in the end of the half where the Buccaneers go into halftime leading 13-6. That moment, much like the Bucs kicking the field goal on the opening drive instead of capitalizing, proved to be the difference. If the kicking unit did not start to run onto the field, Goff spikes the ball and the Lions are able to kick a field goal to make it 13-9 at halftime. Then, with the way things played out, instead of having to go for it on fourth down at the end of the game from the 26-yard line, the Lions are kicking a field goal for a 22-20 lead with about 2 seconds left on the clock, breaking the hearts of the Buccaneers and Buccaneers fans for the third straight time. You could not have asked for a better defensive performance, and I'm going to talk plenty about the defense coming up in a little bit, but we all kind of thought that this was going to be a high-scoring game. It was going to be a race to 30 points. Instead, the defense picks off Jared Goff twice. They win the turnover battle 2-1, which was my bold prediction on Friday's episode, and they implemented the Evan Klosky strategy from Wednesday of giving up yards but clamping down in the red zone to force field goals. That strategy worked to a T. The Lions were 7 of 17 on third down in this game. They were 1 for 7 in the red zone. Even after Vita Vea went down, the Lions were still asking Goff to chuck the ball all over the field. Jahmyr Gibbs ran the ball well, 84 yards on 13 carries with a couple of explosive plays. Montgomery had 35 yards on 11 carries with a touchdown. But they had Jared Goff throw the ball 55 times, probably assuming that the secondary being as beat up as it was and the pass rush now missing Vita Vea and Kalijah Kancey was going to open things up down the field. Even holding them to field goals, it was close. And the biggest moment in this one was the field goal that Detroit couldn't even attempt. Remember, the Lions got the ball to start the second half, and they quickly moved it down the field with a pass to St. Brown and then a roughing the passer call on Will Golston, but they still came away with 3 points. Had that ball been spiked, it is now a 13-12 game. The Bucs go 3 and out on their next possession. Then the Lions score a touchdown to take the lead. So instead of 16-13, it's 19-13. Baker's touchdown keeps it a field goal difference. that lead that the Bucs got after Baker looked like Lamar Jackson. Baker looked like Lamar Jackson on back-to-back plays, and it changed everything about what the Bucs were able to do defensively and what the Lions were doing offensively. It stayed a heavy pass-oriented game for the Lions. If the Bucs are only up one, the Lions are running the ball more, they're chewing up more of the clock, and they know that they only have to get inside the 35 and they have a lead. It changed the entire complexion of the game the rest of the way. The defense stood up and answered every challenge. And again, I'm going to talk plenty more about them coming up in a little bit. But I do have a bonus big moment for everyone, and that was Chris Godwin's touchdown. I pounded the table on this show for Godwin to be the focal point of the offense early in the game, and he was. At one point in the second quarter, he had all of Baker Mayfield's passing yards. But that 41-yard catch and run for a touchdown was a thing of beauty, and it was all because of Mike Evans. Evans, to that point, had one target, which he dropped. But on that particular play, Godwin ran behind Evans to get to the outside, and Evans ran a post. The safety, I believe it was Terrion Arnold, he dropped down to cover Evans and left Godwin wide open. There was not a single Detroit Lion in between Chris Godwin and the end zone. That play does not happen if the Lions are not so concerned with Evans beating them again. In the divisional round last year, Evans had nearly 150 yards. This time, he had 42 yards on 3 catches, but that was what really helped open things up for Chris Godwin in the first half of that game, was all of the attention that Mike Evans demanded from this Lions defense. Dan Campbell probably went into this week saying Mike Evans is not going to be the one to beat us. We are going to bracket over him. We are going to double him. We are going to do everything in our power to prevent him from getting the ball. Well, Arnold missed the memo that the Bucs also still have Chris Godwin. He was left wide open, and that was the moment that the Bucs were able to take a 13-6 lead. That moment was almost as huge as the Lions not being able to kick a field goal at the end of the first half with the potential to double up since they had the opening possession of the second half. It was a beautiful play design by Liam Cohen. It was a terrible job by the Lions to react and recover, and it led to the longest touchdown play for the Buccaneers offense this year. Going to jump into the live chat really quick. Destined for Greatness says Baker doing his best Lamar Jackson impression. I'll talk more about that in a little bit, but Baker was fantastic, on that series, and especially those back-to-back plays where he had 11 yards on each of those 2 runs. Jacko says, I am calling out all Bucs podcasters who picked us to lose. That was me. I picked the Buccaneers to lose this game. I've already been called out by Sammer of the 813 and Loose Cannons, because over on the 813.tv, we did predictions, score predictions, and kind of bold predictions that were posted yesterday. Rock Riley and I were the 2 that picked the Lions to win this game. And look, it was sketchy there all the way up until the very end. Justin School got absolutely just embarrassed by Aiden Hutchinson. Hutchinson was living in the backfield, making things really difficult on Baker Mayfield. The defense, once they lost Vita Vea, it got even more sketchy, but they stepped up in a big, big way. This was an incredible team win by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Trevor says, we wanted it more today. Absolutely. The Bucs, Jenna Lane of ESPN tweeted out that she shared the elevator getting down to the post-game press conference and the locker room with some of the Buccaneers coaching staff. And she said there were tears in their eyes. This game meant so much to Tampa to be able to get this monkey off their back, get some redemption. A week 2 win is not the same as a divisional round win, but they were able to go back into that hostile environment and steal one away from Detroit. We talk about how important it is to steal some of these games. The Lions have the second best odds in the NFC to make it to the Super Bowl. The Bucs stole one, shorthanded in a hostile environment. This was huge. The biggest takeaways on both sides of the ball, that is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It is the easiest, most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports because unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. It's the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineups stay in even if one of your players leaves in the first half and doesn't return. Prize Picks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. It's super simple to play. You just pick more or less than a player's stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. It's not you against thousands of other fantasy players and sharks, just you against the numbers. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL, all lowercase, all one word, and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. When it comes to game day, I need 3 things. Wings for me, pizza for my sons, and drinks all around. On Sundays, I don't have time to run to the store or drive all over the place, picking up everything that my boys and I need before the games kick off. So I call on DoorDash to help me out. DoorDash is my go-to because they are the best and most reliable place for all of my delivery orders. Local restaurants, grocery stores, anything that we need to be game day ready can be delivered with DoorDash. Use promo code LOCKEDFALL24 for 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. Limited time offer, terms apply. Promo is not valid for orders containing alcohol. DoorDash, your door to game day greatness, your door to more. Download the DoorDash app now to order your game day favorites. And don't forget, promo code LOCKEDFALL24 for 50% off up to $10 on your first order when you spend $15 or more. Must be 21 and over to order alcohol. Drink responsibly. Alcohol only available in select markets. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listener view every single day. I am not hitting the panic button on the run game yet. I'll tell you why coming up in just a minute. But now the new Locked On NFL is here. Locked On NFL is now 2 shows every day. First, make the madman Tyler Rowland kick off your morning with the double shot of NFL espresso. Then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Add in the Locked On local experts and you get unprecedented NFL insight, hot opinions, detailed breakdowns, all in 30 minutes. It's the new Locked On NFL, and it's twice a day. Make the madman Tyler Rowland and the barber Tony Wiggins your second listen at the new Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. My biggest takeaways from this game, let's start on the offensive side of the ball. The run game just can't get going. Rachaad White had a rough day. 10 carries for 18 yards. And the penetration by the Lions defensive line meant that Rachaad basically did not have a chance all afternoon. Bucky only had 22 yards on 7 carries, but the offensive line was terrible in run blocking. They really weren't all that great in pass blocking, but most of that was on Justin School, who got schooled by Aiden Hutchinson all day long. Just in case any of you were wondering how important Luke Gedeke is to this team and to this offensive line, this game against the Lions answered that question for you in a big way. Much like last week, I'm not going to pin the blame squarely on the shoulders of Rachaad or Bucky Irving. There was only one play that I remember thinking that Rachaad had a lot of green if he had bounced the run outside, but for the most part, there were absolutely no running lanes. He didn't get involved in the passing game at all, yet Rachaad had 1 catch on 1 target for 5 yards. And when you can't get Rachaad Running, you have to get him the ball in space and let him work. Maybe Baker isn't beaten half to death by Hutchinson if he had some quick dump offs to Rashad. I did not love when they lined up and had Rashad try to help block Hutchinson next to Justin School. You need Kate Otten over there for that. You need Kokeeft over there for that. You need Peyton Durham. You need somebody other than Rashad, because he was nothing more than just basically a gnat that Aiden Hutchinson swatted away, got into the backfield, and got another sack. But I'm not hitting the panic button on the running backs in Tampa. Cohen has to figure out how to open up some lanes for these guys. They can be so good and so dangerous, but you have to give them a chance. Give credit where credit is due. And that is the Detroit Lions run defense. This is probably what it feels like when other teams are trying to run against a healthy Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But Campbell has the run defense in Detroit looking like one of the best in the league. They allowed just 50 yards to Kyron Williams last week. So back-to-back weeks, the Bucs faced really, really tough run defenses. It's not panic time. They get Denver this upcoming week, but there need to be some wholesale changes if they are going to get the run game actually moving and helping out this offense. All right, now it's time to talk more about this defense. And my biggest takeaway from this one was their Michael Jordan mentality. People like myself, Evan Klosky, many Bucs fans, other people in the media, they looked at this game and said, without Antoine Winfield Jr., without Kalijah Kancey, with the secondary being held together with prayers and duct tape, this team is going to struggle against an offense like the Detroit Lions, especially in Detroit. Well, the defense took that personally. This defense was unbelievable. Zyon McCollum got his first career interception on Goff's very first pass of the game. Jordan Whitehead and Tyke Smith were flying into the backfield to get after the running backs and try to make up for Vita Vea not being on the field. Saracier Dennis with big play after big play after big hit. Yaya Diaby couldn't finish with sacks, but he was the one that had pressure that forced Goff's bad pass that was intercepted by Christian Izien in the fourth quarter. He was the one that had pressure that forced a bad throw on 4th and 6 at the end of the game and got the win for the Bucs. And that was on just a 4-man rush. Yaya Diaby played really, really well. I want to see him finish more of these plays, but given what the Bucs were dealing with without Kancey and without Vea, Yaya Diaby had a really solid game. Tyke Smith, a couple of big pass breakups on third down. Zyon McCollum had some big pass breakups. Logan Hall was an absolute unit in run defense. They were not going to let Detroit win this game. The Bucs defense gave up 463 total yards, but yards aren't points. When it mattered the most, they made plays and they got stops. Detroit was held to under 16 points twice all last season, the last time coming on December 10th against the Bears in Chicago. And the Bucs did it with 2 of their 3 defensive captains missing at least part, if not all, of this game. The next man up mentality was real in this one. They weren't scared. They weren't intimidated. They were not backing down. This defense was essentially daring Jared Goff to throw the ball against them and then imposing their will in the area of the field where it mattered the most. Detroit had the ball for over 33 minutes in this game. They had 7 trips inside the red zone and had 1 touchdown to show for it. The Bucs defense allowed 2 fourth down conversions. The Lions did complete 3 fourth down conversions, but 1 was a fake punt, but it still didn't deter them. They never hung their heads. They never got down on themselves. The Lions on 1 drive executed a fake punt deep in their own territory for a first down, then converted another fourth down later in that same drive, and the defense never collapsed. They still forced a punt on that Lions possession. I cannot remember a time since Super Bowl 55 that I have been more impressed with a Buccaneers defense than I am with this performance. I said it multiple times last week, and I'm going to say it again on this show. These two teams are going to meet again in January. If the Bucs can do what they did in week 2 and then add Kalijah Kancey and Antoine Winfield Jr. to the mix, hopefully have Vita Vea back, that's going to be really interesting to see. The early reports that broke right before I went live was that Vita Vea suffered an MCL sprain. He is going to have an MRI tomorrow to clarify that, but all early signs point to the injury not being as bad as it looked when it happened. That is going to be huge for the Buccaneers. They cannot go without Antoine and Kancey and Vita Vea for an extended period of time, especially when after the Denver game, you have a gauntlet of very, very difficult teams that you have to go up against. Going to jump into the chat again real quick. We got the Ghost Hunter Gal. Whitehead is among the best tacklers on the team, no doubt about it. And I will talk more about Jordan Whitehead, but he was phenomenal. He really took his game to a different level, knowing that he had to step up in Antoine Winfield Jr.'s absence. He was incredible. Kenny says, Yaya always seems to be a half second late. It's going to get there. And I was talking to somebody on Twitter about it. When Kalijah Kancey is back and you have that kind of impact on the defensive line in front of Yaya Diaby, that half second late is going to turn into just in time to be able to sack the quarterback. Kancey changes how this defense can operate and how well these edge rushers are going to be able to perform. It's a collective. Vita Vea draws attention. Kalijah Kancey draws attention. When those guys aren't on the field, they can use all their resources to make sure that Yaya Diaby and Joe Tryon-Shoyinka are not getting in the backfield and hitting the quarterback. The best players on each side of the ball, that is coming up next. Go ahead and start dropping your game balls in the live chat, and I will get to those coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. You all know how much I love going to live events, concerts, sporting events. I'm constantly talking on this show about a concert or a game I'm getting ready to go see. And the first place that I'm checking out when I look for tickets is Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You know, I've used Game Time for everything from NBA to NHL to concert tickets. And with all-in pricing, that little toggle switch turned on, I know exactly what I'm going to spend up front. So there are no surprises when I get to checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Wrapping things up here on a live victory post-game episode of the Locked On Bucs podcast. And if you're sitting here watching it late, listening to it late, and you're thinking, man, I want to be in the live chat with all these fun people. Well, subscribe on YouTube, turn on those little, the notifications, and you'll know every single time an episode is up, and you'll especially know when I'm getting ready to go live. You won't ever miss the live chat again. But you all know how we do things after a win. This is 2 weeks in a row. We're going to hand out game balls. There's going to be 2 handed out on either side of the ball. Let's start with the golden game ball. My top player of the game in this one is Zyon McCollum. This guy deserves all the flowers. He didn't clear concussion protocol until Saturday. We had no idea if Zyon McCollum was going to be playing in this game or not up until basically 24 hours before kickoff. And then he goes out and has the best performance of his career. His first career interception came on the first offensive play for the Detroit Lions. Shout out David Harrison. 4 passes defensed. That was a team high. He had 6 tackles. McCollum was incredible. He had the toughest test that he has faced in the NFL up to this point, going against Amon-Ra St. Brown, going against Jameson Williams, but he stood up to the challenge. This performance was why the Buccaneers were so confident in his abilities that they traded away Carlton Davis, who got away with an egregious pass interference late in that game. To be fair, we saw Carlton get away with quite a few pass interferences when he was with Tampa. That one was really, really bad. Could have cost the Buccaneers the game, but absolutely phenomenal stuff from Zyon McCollum. I loved every minute of it. Game ball 2 and my top offensive player was a tough one, but I'm going to go with Baker Mayfield again. Not a stat line that's going to jump out or win him Air Player of the Week again. 12 of 19 for 165 and a touchdown. But he did what he needed to do to get a win. The touchdown pass to Godwin was beautiful. Back-to-back runs of 11 yards on 3rd and 4, and then a design draw for a touchdown run to give the Bucs the lead that they needed to get the win. Baker Mayfield was the team's leading rusher with 34 yards. He didn't get rattled or shaken up by being sacked 5 times. He kept his cool. He stayed poised. He played smart football, and he led the Buccaneers to another win. Game ball number 3 and the second one for the defense, I'm going with a tie. I know it's cheating, but I don't care. This is my show, and I'm going to break the rules if I want to. First, Jordan Whitehead. With Antoine Winfield Jr. out, Whitehead was absolutely incredible. He led the team with 11 tackles. He had a tackle for loss. He had a key pass breakup late in the game, nearly had an interception. It just slipped so slightly through his arms. Just like last week, he was flying all over the field and making plays. How much have the Bucs missed this kind of safety play over the last few years when, coming from someone other than Antoine Winfield Jr.? Whitehead is a game changer and a difference maker, and he proved that in Detroit. The other half of this game ball is going to Servassier Dennis. He was tied with Whitehead for a team-high 11 tackles, had some crucial plays late in the game, a big hit on Jahmyr Gibbs after a 1-yard gain to force 4th and 8 with a minute left. He was flying all over the field in the second half. He was laying into guys. He brought the hammer in this one. Just an absolutely great performance from Servassier Dennis. This is why, again, the Bucs were so comfortable in letting Devin White go. KJ Britt had a good game, and then Servassier Dennis had probably the best game that he has had so far since joining the Buccaneers. Game ball number 4, and the other one for the offense, I got to go with Chris Godwin again. 7 catches on 8 targets for 117 and a score, all coming in the first half. The Bucs didn't throw nearly as much in the second half, and the Lions seem to have figured out that number 14 guy is pretty good, but Godwin set the tone early, and he did it often. 2 of his catches coming on 3rd down. One of them resulted in a first. The other one didn't, but he gained 18 yards on the catch that didn't result in a first down. Then, of course, the catch and run, the 41-yard touchdown, was the longest touchdown play by the Buccaneers offense this season. The Bucs do not get this win without the way that Godwin started this game. He needed to have the kind of day that Cooper Kupp did last week. Well, he got 7 more yards on half the receptions, nearly a third of the targets that Cooper Kupp had against the Lions last week. Huge game from Godwin, and I legitimately expect these types of games to continue for Godwin all season long. Going to jump into the chat and see who you guys are giving your game balls to. Let's see. We got Bat W. He agrees. Zyon should get a game ball. We have A-Lord 3757, game ball, Godwin, and Baker. Obviously, I agree with those. King James 813 says Baker, Himfield, and Zyon McCollum. I love that. Although there's only, I have to be stubborn and say that there's only one him on the team, and it's Antoine Himfield. If we start throwing hymns all over the place, it kind of loses its luster a little bit. Paul, aka Florida Dream House, game ball, only one should go to Todd Bowles. He had a massively depleted defense ready to play. Imagine if our defense was 100% healthy. Baker now enters MVP discussion. Absolute beast. I'm not ready to pull the MVP trigger quite yet, but Baker Mayfield is showing why he's a $100 million man, why he's found a home in Tampa, why this team believes in him, trusts him. Another really good game from him. James says, great game ball handouts. The team played good. Any other game balls in here before we get out of here? Lakita says, we were just awesome today. Yeah, it was. I mean, everybody was sweating a little bit when the Bucs went 3 and out, had to punt the ball back. And the Lions had great field position with under a minute to play. But again, the defense stood tall when it meant the most. Noah 2023. This will help Baker get more respect, but the Baker haters will continue to criticize and complain always. Always. Baker's always going to have his haters. If people are sticking with hating on Baker Mayfield, there's nothing that he's going to be able to do to change their minds. Their minds are made up. They're set. Nothing he can do can change it. He can win the MVP. He can win the Super Bowl MVP. Baker haters are not going to change their minds. Let's see. Rick Dog in the chat says the red zone defense gets the game ball. Yeah, absolutely love that. Ben in the chat says game ball to Christian Izzian, and Zyon McCollum. Trevor gives one to Chris Godwin. Scotty J says that he's amazed that Baker's head is still attached. HBK says, James, you said we would lose this game. Go Bucs. I know. I already ate my crow, but I also said that I hope I was wrong. I said when I picked the Lions to win that I hoped I was wrong. It was a close one. It was a tight one, but man, Todd Bowles had that defense rolling. Every single guy, that Michael Jordan mentality. I said it. They took everything that was said personally, and they were not going to lose this game. That is going to do it for this episode. I am way over on time, but please check out everything going on over at the 813.tv. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube with the notifications turned on and on your favorite podcast platform of choice. And if you'd be so kind, hit the like button. It is going to help other people find this show. The more likes that this gets, the more people are going to be able to see the show. I greatly appreciate it. All of you in the live chat, as always, absolutely crushed it. You guys are the best. Become a Locked On Bucs insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes. And of course, you can follow along on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at @JYarcho_Bucs. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding Victory Monday. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. I want to thank you so much for joining me right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.